Okei. Ikstoiks kanatoni. It's a cold morning. The last morning of January 2018. Hard to believe that a month has already passed on that Gregorian calendar. Last night we had an eclipsed full moon. Kattoi, the moon of Kattoi. And this morning obviously we have a little bit of snowfall, cold temperatures. We just got done with the Chinook, so it's a little bit like, you know, I was used to the cold, but after the last couple of warm days, this morning feels pretty chilly. I've got a bunch of paperwork to do today. I'm supposed to be proposal writing, but I figured before I get going on that, I needed to come out to the forests of Spokane, of which there are three. There are three. Right now I'm in the area that I call the Northwood, and this is an area that really gets nailed pretty hard during flood years, which is most years, right? So in this area you don't really have a lot of undergrowth in the forest. It's just the cottonwood trees. Not much is able to withstand having year-to-year shifts of perhaps a foot deep silt, you know. But you have in here a little bit of downy brome, you have a little bit of sandbar willow, but in general it's just the forest, it's just the trees itself. And I do feel like being amidst the trees you get a little bit of an energy surge, so I think it's a healthy thing to get outside in the mornings. Get outside, take a little walk about, or maybe a jog and what have you. Breathe the air that's not contained. See the other life around us, and hopefully it won't be so overwhelming that it makes it difficult to work the rest of the day, but we'll see. For me, I'm aiming for just an energy boost, so gonna walk around this forest a little bit, then head over to the forest main and the owlwood. While the Northwood might be less botanically diverse than some of the other areas at Spokane, and while it's certainly noisy, being situated right adjacent to the Highway 3 bridge, you know, that goes over the Old Man River here, the wildlife don't necessarily mind so much. And this morning we have up here a small porcupine in the trees. There were some magpies about earlier, and I often see deer down here grazing on the tops of the brome. Many birds choose to nest in here. I've seen over the years magpies, of course. I've seen the owls attempt to nest in here, yellow warblers, house wrens, flycatchers, downy woodpeckers, hairy woodpeckers, flickers, of course, tree swallows. Lots of different birds up to nest here. Robins. Another thing about the Northwood is that you have sign of the not too long ago human past, right? The recent history of the floodplain in Lethbridge. Here where I'm standing now, there are the remains of the old boardwalk. The oxbow of the river used to flow right through here, of course. And then some years ago, I can't remember the year, but the levee was built to lock in the waters back there to create the so-called Elizabeth Hall wetlands. Not knocking Elizabeth Hall or anything like that, but this place has a far longer history, and when animals and places around here get named after mere human beings, I typically take issue with it. Most of the trees of the Northwood are of similar age. I noticed here on the bark of this tree that there's a moist spot, and down further another, much larger. So the tree is leaking. And I don't know quite what that's about. If it indicates that maybe, yeah, you look on this side of the same tree, the same trunk. Look at that moisture. This tree is leaking. Why it's leaking, I'm not sure. I can't imagine it's a good sign, given that the other trees are not. Perhaps it's some kind of illness of the cottonwoods. Departing the forest now, at least briefly, the Northwood. I'm out to look at what's happening on the river. And here we have the upspinnies crowded around the little bit of open water. If one were to take count, I would not be surprised to learn that there were 1,000 geese here. Okay, so I am now headed into the Owlwood, which is here. This clan of cottonwoods, just downstream of the high-level bridge. And I call it the Owlwood because the great horned owls used to nest here every year, or there was a couple who were. But unfortunately, the female from that couple got bumped on the highway bridge, and the male passed shortly thereafter, I assume of heartbreak. But his body was found on one of the trails just across the river from here. So yeah, they haven't returned, and none of their offspring have chosen to nest in here. But I still call it the Owlwood, even though it's been, whatever, 3-4 years. And you never know what you're gonna find in here. It's different from the Northwood. As you can see, there's a lot more bullberry brush, diamond willows. You have some clematis vines and wild licorice, tall goldenrod, buckbrush. The diversity of species in the undergrowth is quite different here. Not quite as diverse as the forest main, because this area does still get hit pretty hard by the floods, but near to that. So I'm just going to take a stroll through. Impressed with this little shelter here, but I've never seen anybody use it. All wood is quiet this morning. Not so much as a chickadee, just the passing geese. My camera's having difficulty staying alive in the cold. I'm about to move into the forest main in this direction, but thought I would stop off first at the South Pond Spring, because I am still curious, having found the remains of crayfish in owl pellets in the forest. I am curious as to whether perhaps a population has taken hold here in the waters of Spobekimi, or whether it's just something that the owls are taking advantage of at the river. So the only open waters here at the pond are at the spring. And I'm wading in now in search of potential crawdad activity. Here are the whitetails. I was just wondering where they might be. That patch of bullberries down there is a great hiding place. I've put camera traps out there one time for a full year to look at all the wildlife that came through. Quite a bit daily. There's the forest main. This afternoon I'm walking the edge zone path that goes between the wet meadows and the forest. Well, while I may not have learned anything today of any huge significance visiting the forests, it's always good to get out for a visit, see what's happening, breathe some fresh air, take in some of the energy from the trees, and now to go back to the office. Stare at a rectangle while sitting inside of a rectangle. Lots of rectangle worship goes on in our culture. That's where I'm headed, but I'll take a piece of this place with me. Keep me sane.